Welcome back to Crime Documentary Files. Today we'll delve into a shocking case that occurred in China in 2001. The main characters in this case are a couple named Guo Jieming and Yang Yang. Yang Yang was born in 1976 into an unhappy family in Harbin. Her parents frequently argued in front of their daughter and sometimes even resorted to physical violence. Growing up in such an environment gradually shaped Yang Yang's stubborn and obstinate personality. Sometimes even a slight unevenness in her braids when her mother did her hair would upset her until it was redone to her satisfaction. Meanwhile, her parents' daily arguments gradually eroded their feelings for each other, ultimately ending in divorce. From then on, Yang Yang followed her mother to live in Xiamen. Growing up in a single-parent family, Yang Yang became an independent and opinionated young woman. Once she made a decision, she would follow through regardless of others' advice. Perhaps out of concern for her mother's hard work and caring for her, Yang Yang decided to become a boarding student shortly after starting middle school to reduce her mother's burden. After graduating from middle school, she chose a vocational high school. Due to her perfectionist nature, her academic performance was excellent in all aspects, and she even served as the president of the student council. Additionally, she was beautifully attractive, making her a well-known figure at school. The vocational high school Yang Yang attended had a partnership with Xiamen Airlines. In 1993, she applied for an open recruitment for flight attendants. With her outstanding qualities, she outperformed over 2,000 applicants, successfully passing the screening to become one of the 30 selected candidates. She then underwent professional training. By 1997, Yang Yang had passed all exams with flying colors and became a flight attendant for Xiamen Airlines. This glamorous job with its high salary filled Yang Yang with enthusiasm. She worked diligently, serving passengers with care and gentleness, striving to shine in this position. Soon, Yang Yang's outstanding performance caught the attention of her superiors. All these efforts helped her win the title of top 10 flight attendants of the airline at just 21 years old. However, it was at this time that a man appeared who would completely change the course of her life. As a flight attendant, Yang Yang interacted with many passengers daily, but they were all just passing acquaintances in her life. One day, on a flight from Beijing to Xiamen, Yang Yang was doing her routine cabin check. She maintained her usual enthusiastic service, but a young man caught her attention. This man smiled brightly at her, constantly calling for service, asking for coffee one moment and cola the next. When filling out the passenger feedback form, he used the excuse of not understanding how to fill it out to ask Yang Yang for help, seizing the opportunity to ask for her phone number for future inquiries. Although Yang Yang was young, she had been working for a few years and understood the man's intentions. However, as the customer is always right, directly refusing would have been impolite. Seeing his persistent requests, Yang Yang thought for a moment and wrote down her pager number. She figured that since it was just a pager number, not a landline or mobile number, whether to respond would ultimately be up to her. After disembarking, Yang Yang didn't think much of it. But this man frequently paged her, inviting her out for meals. Yang Yang politely returned one call and used the excuse of being too busy to decline his invitation. During this process, she learned that the man's name was Guo Jieming. He normally lived in Beijing and frequently traveled to Xiamen for business. During that time, whenever he came to Xiamen, he would page Yang Yang. Yang Yang thought that since he lived in Beijing and she was in Xiamen, they couldn't become friends, not even casual ones. So, apart from that one phone call, no matter how often Guo Jieming paged her, Yang Yang had no further contact with him. Moreover, during this time, Yang Yang truly didn't have time to pay attention to Guo Jieming. She was busy looking for a good school. Yang Yang had been working in the industry for a few years. Although being a flight attendant was a job many people envied, she wasn't satisfied with it. Yang Yang understood that a vocational degree would limit her future development to some extent. Therefore, she hoped to continue her studies to improve herself. Yang Yang was quick to act on her thoughts. Soon after, she decided to pause her developing career as a flight attendant to enroll in the Adult Education College of Peking University, majoring in business administration. Returning to university life, Yang Yang treasured this rare opportunity. She She stayed at school to study diligently and got along well with her classmates. Her classmates described her as beautiful, fond of ballet and sports, but not much of a partygoer. She usually dressed simply. She even served as the flag bearer in Peking University's centennial celebration. However, this peaceful life was disrupted by an unexpected phone call in 1998. It was Yang Yang's second semester at Peking University. That day, she suddenly heard the dormitory manager calling her name. "Yang Yang, you have a phone call." So she went downstairs to answer the phone. A voice that was both strange and familiar came from the other end. After a few seconds of thought, Yang Yang surprisingly remembered the caller's name, Guo Jieming. This moved her a bit. A year had passed since their initial meeting, yet this man was still so persistent and remembered her. After inquiring, she learned that Guo Jieming had been persistently paging her. Before Yang Yang went to Beijing for school, she had left her pager number in Xiamen. Later, Yang Yang's mother saw Guo Jieming's message and called him back. Guo Jieming, after all, was a man who had been in the business world for many years. His politeness, sincerity, and generosity left a very good impression on Yang Yang's mother. So she gave him the phone number of her daughter's dormitory. This phone call greatly changed Yang Yang's attitude towards Guo Jieming. He was no longer just an ordinary person in her eyes, but gradually, she developed a good impression of him. Guo Jieming also seized this opportunity. The next day, he drove his Mercedes to Peking University to find Yang Yang. In a later interview, Yang Yang described this meeting very dreamily. She said that day, when she walked out of Peking University campus, she saw a Mercedes and had a feeling it was Guo Jieming. That day, he was dressed very smartly, had deliberately put on perfume, and exuded the aura of a wealthy man. He held a bouquet of fresh flowers and smiled as he walked towards her. Although many articles later described Guo Jieming as a perfect CEO figure, in reality, Yang Yang was 5 feet 7 inches, 170 centimeters tall, while Guo Jieming was only 5 feet 6 inches, 168 centimeters, and 10 years older than her. Nevertheless, in pursuing Yang Yang, Guo Jieming spared no effort. He frequently sent flowers daily and took her out in luxury cars. To get closer to her, he even enrolled in an English class at Peking University. Although he only attended 2 classes in the end, it was enough to make Yang Yang, a girl with little romantic experience, gradually fall into his web of love. After all, a wealthy, sincere, and ambitious man like Guo Jieming was the dream of many young girls. In their daily interactions, although Guo Jieming didn't explicitly express it, he intentionally conveyed the information that he was still single. He told Yang Yang, "Now, people my age are all married with children. Look how young I am. I don't look like I'm over 30 at all." From then on, Guo Jieming became Yang Yang's closest friend in Beijing. When she didn't have classes, she often went out with Guo Jieming. When she fell ill, the first person she thought of calling was Guo Jieming, and he would immediately drop everything and take her to the hospital. Later, Guo Jieming even prepared a special pager for Yang Yang. After receiving this pager, Yang Yang always looked forward to Guo Jieming contacting her. But this time, there was no news from him for 3 consecutive days. This caused Yang Yang great distress. It was then that she realized how deeply she had fallen into Guo Jieming's love trap. Guo Jieming, having experienced many relationships, understood women's psychology very well. He had Yang Yang firmly in his grasp. On Yang Yang's birthday, he took her to a 5-star hotel in Beijing. There, he had prepared 9,999 roses. This moved Yang Yang to tears, completely breaking down her defenses, and she threw herself into his arms. From then on, they officially began dating. The next day, Guo Jieming told Yang Yang to come find him at the Roman Garden apartment complex nearby after class. When she arrived, Yang Yang learned that to be closer to her, Guo Jieming had rented an apartment there. That day, many of his colleagues and friends were also present. This was equivalent to Guo Jieming publicly introducing Yang Yang as his girlfriend to everyone. Guo Jieming told her, "The conditions at school aren't good anyway, why don't you move in here?" Having developed deep feelings for Guo Jieming, Yang Yang didn't hesitate to move into this apartment and begin living with Guo Jieming. The time that followed was the sweetest period in their relationship. However, when her studies at Peking University ended, Yang Yang faced the choice between love and career. She was uncertain whether she should return to being a flight attendant. Due to Guo Jieming's persistence, Yang Yang finally gave up her flight attendant job and decided to stay in Beijing. At the same time, Yang Yang's mother married a Canadian man. She had originally planned to take her daughter abroad, but Yang Yang refused. She rejected opportunities to leave Guo Jieming time and time again, gradually losing herself and sliding into an abyss. As time passed, Yang Yang began to notice some unusual things about Guo Jieming. When he made phone calls at home, he always used a dialect to communicate. Although Yang Yang couldn't understand Minnan dialect, she could still distinguish words like child and business trip in those conversations. Moreover, although Guo Jieming always made calls in front of her, sometimes his eyes would avoid hers. Based on her woman's intuition, Yang Yang sensed that Guo Jieming was hiding something. But even so, Yang Yang didn't directly ask Guo Jieming, but quietly inquired with the housekeeper. This housekeeper was also someone Guo Jieming had invited from his hometown in Guangzhou, so she was quite familiar with his affairs. However, the housekeeper always gave evasive answers or changed the subject, only telling Yang Yang that Guo Jieming was a good person and she should just trust him. Thus, Yang Yang could almost confirm that her suspicions were correct. Guo Jieming must have a wife and children in his hometown. For Yang Yang, Guo Jieming was her first love. She couldn't accept this deception and decided to confront him. When exposed, Guo Jieming appeared very agitated, even crying dramatically. He explained to Yang Yang that he and his wife had been emotionally disconnected for a long time, but because they had a child, he hadn't had the courage to divorce. He also said that before Yang Yang, he had a girlfriend who was a student at the Fashion Institute, but she later fell in love with another man and left him. He promised Yang Yang that he would definitely divorce his wife and marry her, repeatedly emphasizing that all responsibility was his, that he had lied, and Yang Yang was not at fault. Although this explanation was quite forced, Yang Yang was still moved by his tears. Not long after, Yang Yang became pregnant. At this time, she was still a student, and it being her first pregnancy, she felt very scared. Moreover, she didn't want to use this to bind Guo Jieming. So, after discussing with Guo Jieming, she terminated the pregnancy. But this incident made her feel very resentful. Although Guo Jieming treated her very well at this time, her role was still not legitimate. So, she set a deadline, requiring Guo Jieming to divorce and properly handle their relationship within 1 or 2 years. During this time, Yang Yang, with her unstable mood, often argued with Guo Jieming for no reason. But he was usually the one to give in. Time passed, and during the Chinese New Year of 1999, they went back to Fujian together for the holiday. Yang Yang demanded that Guo Jieming resolve his family issues during the holiday. He had to choose either to divorce his wife or break up with her. Although Guo Jieming verbally agreed, he seemed very hesitant. On the 29th day of the last lunar month, he came from Guangzhou to Xiamen to find Yang Yang. After meeting, Yang Yang again mentioned that he should go back and be clear with his wife. Clearly, Guo Jieming was still not determined. After all, he and his wife still had a young child. Seeing Guo Jieming's hesitation when he was driving back to Guangzhou, Yang Yang offered to go with him for part of the way. As a result, when they were about to get on the highway, Guo Jieming saw that Yang Yang had no intention of getting off, thinking she planned to go back to Guangzhou with him to clarify things. This made Guo Jieming a bit angry. In fact, Yang Yang originally had no such intention. But when provoked like this, she really did insist on going back to Guangzhou together and demanded that Guo Jieming call his wife to inform her. Guo Jieming, also angry, actually made the call and told his wife, "My girlfriend wants to come see you." Receiving such a sudden call, his wife didn't believe it at all and thought her husband was joking. But when they arrived in Guangzhou, Yang Yang lost all courage to meet Guo Jieming's wife. After staying in a hotel for one night on New Year's Eve, she took a taxi back to Xiamen by herself. However, before leaving, she reminded Guo Jieming once again. This time, Guo Jieming finally told his wife about the situation. When his parents learned about their son's affair, they were very angry. Therefore, his family had an unhappy New Year. As soon as the New Year was over, Guo Jieming hurriedly took Yang Yang back to Beijing. But unexpectedly, as soon as they arrived, Guo Jieming's parents immediately followed. They used the excuse of coming to Beijing for medical treatment and stayed in Yang Yang and Guo Jieming's apartment. But their real purpose was to examine the woman who had disrupted their son's family. His mother didn't like this woman who had broken up her son's family and didn't agree to her son's divorce. One day, Guo Jieming's Rolex watch suddenly disappeared. His parents thought Yang Yang had taken it, and Guo Jieming also suspected her. Because of this incident, the two were cold to each other for over a month. This incident greatly hurt Yang Yang. In the latter half of 1999, Yang Yang had the idea of studying abroad. This could give her time to calmly think about her difficult situation. Her parents were very supportive, and Guo Jieming didn't object. In April 2000, Yang Yang went to Switzerland to study hotel management. She thought she could calm down, but Guo Jieming's calls could come at any time. There, Yang Yang studied and worked simultaneously, living in the hotel where she was studying. At night, if she turned off her phone, Guo Jieming's calls would come from the first floor to the 6th floor of the hotel, calling room by room until he found her. Just in Yang Yang's first month in Switzerland, Guo Jieming's phone bill exceeded $4,500. Moreover, every holiday, Guo Jieming would call to urge her to come back, saying he missed her very much. Therefore, while Yang Yang's classmates often traveled during holidays, she would fly back to reunite with Guo Jieming. Although most of the time, they felt that absence makes the heart grow fonder, Yang Yang always felt troubled by her illegitimate role. Moreover, she also discovered some of Guo Jieming's personality traits that she couldn't accept. For example, some of his business partners considered affairs like theirs normal. He also frequently went to entertainment venues to entertain clients. Once, Yang Yang hurriedly returned from Switzerland and accidentally caught Guo Jieming being intimate with some hostesses in a karaoke room. She was so angry that she threw her bag at Guo Jieming. Guo Jieming felt this action made him lose face and offended his clients. On the way home, he hit Yang Yang's head with a brick, requiring 3 stitches at the hospital. Later, Guo Jieming told Yang Yang that he had bought a house in Beijing under his wife's name. He explained that he did this because the house was an internal purchase and he had a Hong Kong household registration. Moreover, Guo Jieming's parents had suggested that after Yang Yang returned to Switzerland, they would have his wife bring their child to live in Beijing. Yang Yang understood that this was their attempt to strengthen the marital relationship. She felt that getting Guo Jieming to divorce was completely hopeless. Every time she returned, they were very affectionate, but as soon as she left, he would return to his wife and child. This was something she absolutely couldn't accept. This time, after Guo Jieming dropped her off at the airport, she decided to end everything herself and prevent Guo Jieming's wife from coming to Beijing. She changed her flight to Switzerland to 3 days later and secretly went to Guangzhou. Yang Yang knew that Guo Jieming's wife was applying for a Hong Kong household registration, so she called pretending to be a staff member in charge of the procedure and said a health check was needed first. Then, she brought mercury extracted from 10 thermometers to Guo Jieming's house and made his wife drink part of it. She then took out a pregnancy test strip and made the wife hold it in her mouth. After waiting a few minutes and seeing no reaction, she made the wife drink the remaining mercury. Afterward, she hurriedly left and returned to Switzerland. After the incident, Guo Jieming's wife felt something was wrong, so she called her husband to tell him what happened. Guo Jieming immediately guessed it was Yang Yang's doing and told his wife to go to the hospital for a checkup quickly. It was confirmed to be mercury poisoning, but fortunately, because she went to the hospital in time, there were no lasting effects. Although Guo Jieming persuaded his wife not to report to the police, his relationship with Yang Yang became increasingly distant. He began to avoid Yang Yang. Yang Yang also started to feel frustrated about this and planned to study in Canada. In April 2001, Yang Yang returned from Switzerland to apply for a Canadian visa. Although Guo Jieming was avoiding her, they still had contact. Guo Jieming often helped her with the visa process. However, at this time, they were no longer living together. During this period, Yang Yang lived alone in a rented apartment. Around midnight on June 27th, Yang Yang went to Guo Jieming's house. She knew that due to client entertainment, Guo Jieming usually returned home at midnight. At exactly midnight, Guo Jieming came home. He saw Yang Yang and asked, "Why are you here?" She replied, "I want to see you, I have something to tell you." But Guo Jieming coldly said he had work in the morning and told Yang Yang to go home. When Yang Yang refused to leave, Guo Jieming reluctantly opened the door and let her in. Once inside, Guo Jieming ignored her and went to the bathroom. Yang Yang heard him seemingly talking on the phone with a girl. She was very angry and told Guo Jieming that she also had a new boyfriend, along with some words intended to provoke him. In his anger, Guo Jieming had sex with her. Afterward, looking at the sleeping Guo Jieming, Yang Yang couldn't sleep. In her mind, like a slow-motion film, memories of their years together played. Then she remembered the phone call Guo Jieming had just made and took his phone to check. Perhaps the noise woke Guo Jieming. Seeing this, he became very angry, struggling for the phone while beating and scolding Yang Yang. He then grabbed a knife and lunged forward. In the chaos, Yang Yang tried to grab the knife, but accidentally stabbed Guo Jieming in the stomach. At this point, Yang Yang immediately pulled out the knife and both were stunned. After staring at each other for a few seconds, Guo Jieming shouted for help and again struggled with Yang Yang for the knife. In the confusion, Yang Yang stabbed him in the neck and chest more than 10 times until they were both exhausted. Subsequently, Guo Jieming died. At this point, Yang Yang dragged his body into the bathroom and cleaned up the blood in the room. She put the bloody bedding and curtains in the washing machine to clean. Then, she used garbage bags to pack the knife and blood-stained towels and papers, drove Guo Jieming's car, and threw these items into a trash can in a nearby residential area. Next, Yang Yang returned to her rented place to get a large suitcase and went back to Guo Jieming's house. But this suitcase was still not big enough to hold Guo Jieming's body. So, she had to go out to buy a larger suitcase nearby. However, when she returned again, she heard the housekeeper calling the police. So, she quietly left the scene. Afterward, she went to a nearby hospital to treat the wound on her hand and also changed her place of residence. On October 8th, while applying for a visa at the Canadian Embassy, Yang Yang was discovered and reported. Subsequently, she was arrested by the police. Because Yang Yang had taken Guo Jieming's mobile phone, watch, and some other property before leaving his house, as well as driving away his Audi, she was charged with murder and theft. On September 9th, 2002, the first trial sentenced Yang Yang to death. However, she felt the sentence was unjust and appealed. On August 8th, 2003, after comprehensive consideration, including the fact that Guo Jieming had intentionally deceived Yang Yang and other circumstances, the judge changed the sentence to a suspended death sentence. Looking back at the years Yang Yang and Guo Jieming spent together, most of the time was filled with struggle and entanglement. She always thought she was fighting for happiness that should have been hers. But in reality, that happiness did not belong to her. The case of Yang Yang and Guo Jieming is not only a heartbreaking tragedy, but also a story that shows the serious consequences of infidelity and deception in marriage. With all her advantages, Yang Yang could have had a bright future. However, because of a blind love, she lost everything and ended up in prison. As for Guo Jieming, a selfish and irresponsible man, he paid the price with his own life. Thank you for watching today's video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss other exciting videos. See you in the next video.